You can't mess that up. That's the good news, man. People think I got to go to this class for 6 months and memorize this outline and these verses, and then I can explain it without a shadow of a doubt, and then someone's going to trust Christ. Can I just share with you that no tricky outline has ever been effective in reaching someone for Jesus Christ? The only thing that draws someone to Jesus, and I'm not saying that those things are bad, by the way. Go ahead and learn those things. Some of you are like, he doesn't like my outline. I love your outline. But understand that no one comes to Christ except that the Holy Spirit prompts them, stirs in them their need, and causes them to respond. A person can sit and listen to the most immaculately detailed description of how to follow Christ and why you should, all the apologetics, everything in place, and be like, no thanks. Or they could sit down and listen to a 6-year-old niece explain to them how they prayed to trust Jesus in their hearts before I went to bed last week. And that's what the Holy Spirit uses to turn that cold-hearted, darkened mind back to the truth. What we need to be praying then is that God would speak clearly through us. We need to be praying that no matter how jumbled or how minuscule the words may seem to us on this side, that as soon as they leave our lips and start floating towards the eardrums of the receiver, that the Holy Spirit gets involved and translates it into some Charles Spurgeon sermon that stirs their heart and causes them to follow Jesus Christ. That's all we're praying for. We're just saying, God, take feeble me and make me useful to you. Make it clear so that they can hear it. One of the first times I ever shared my faith with someone was a guy I met in high school. I sinned my brains out with him, and then in college I got serious about Jesus Christ. And so I came back after all those experiences, and I just knew that I drew a target on his back. I just knew I was supposed to tell him about Jesus. So I decided to do it one night, and we went out and we had a good time, a decent time, an honest, godly time. Which he was like, why aren't we having but I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Let's just go out. And so we got back to his house. I was dropping him off. He was reaching for the door. I grabbed his arm. I said, Brad, stop. And he just looked at me, because you don't grab another guy's arm, and say, stop. He's like, hey. But I was like, hey, bro, seriously, I need to tell you something. And I had been to one of these conferences where I learned all my steps, my 5 steps, all the verses that go with it. And so, I'm there, I'm nervous, my palms are sweating, and I'm like praying. I'm like, God, help me to say this. And I started through my formula. And I went through all my formula, but here's what I did. I put step number 3 at number 1, and I took number 2, and I flipped it around, and then I quoted the wrong verse here. And listen, if you had been in the car that night, I might have converted you to Buddhism. I don't know. But it didn't sound like the gospel to me. And have you ever been talking to someone and you just keep digging the hole deeper? No, what I meant is that you need to be, covered by the blood, and it's like, the guy's like, weird. I don't want a blood covering, you're a sinner and a scum. And it's like, hey, I'm not a sinner. And it just wasn't going well. And so I said, listen, man, scrap all that. If you could just forget the last 5 minutes of your life, do it. Let me just tell you what happens with me, or what has happened with me. Here, listen, you know me. And he did. He knew me. He's like, yeah, I know you. And I said, and I don't expect you to see it right away, but there's been a change that's happened in my life. And it's come about because the Jesus that I always heard about in church and gave lip service to for all the time that I've met you is finally real to me. And he's changing who I am. And I looked at him, I said, Brad, listen, man, I don't mean to be weird or anything, but I love you like a brother. And I want you so desperately to have what Jesus has given me. And it just, I just briefly explained what Jesus had done for me. If you've trusted Jesus Christ, you have an experience where you put your faith in him and you prayed to him and you said, Jesus, come into my life and here's mine and I surrender and forgive me of my sins. And I just explained to him how I did that. And he got out of the car. He just looked at me as if to say, are you finished? Because this is really strange. And then he got out of the car. That was it. But I remember, driving away, I was just like, God, I don't know what that was. Forgive me. Because I'm confused now about what it is to follow you. But if you can use that to make it clear to Brad who you are, just please do. 9 months later, we're having pizza at a pizza buffet. And unbeknownst to me, he'd just been checking me out, my family out. He hung out with us at the house and stuff like that. And he started in with his questions. The Holy Spirit had taken the mess that I had said and made it clear. 2 months after that, he called me very late in the night, inappropriately late in the night, woke up my whole family. But he just said, hey, I just wanted you to know, I was reading Matthew tonight. I don't know why I went there, but I was reading about the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and I'm in, man. I trusted Jesus tonight. And I hung up the phone and screamed my head off and got my parents really mad, but they were okay after I told them that, finally Brad had trusted Christ. And I went back and saw him. I was just back in Illinois a couple weeks ago, visiting my parents, and he's a better Christian than I am now. Love that. Love it when the people that you get to share Christ with go past you. And he's just proof to me that if you're just willing to just walk through a door, start talking about what Jesus has done for you, and just praying that God will make it clear to those around you, He'll take care of that. He's got it, man. Just open your mouth. So, first part of it's praying. We got to pray hard. We got to enlist God in this process. If we try to do it without Him, it's not going to happen. God goes before us. He sets the appointments. He opens the doors. We just walk through and ask Him to make it clear. But then what about how we live? Paul addresses that. And he says this in verse 5, be wise in the way that you act towards others or towards outsiders. He's referring to people outside the family of God. Be wise in the way that you act towards outsiders. Make the most, then, of every opportunity. And in this, he's saying to the Colossians and to us, hey, man, watch what you're doing. Have you ever, gotten some of your friends to come over and help you move some furniture, like down a really tight hallway, right? And it's your house, but they're helping you and they don't really care as much, like especially when you were younger, and everybody was like, yeah, man, dude, I'll come over and help you, whatever. And you're moving the sleeper couch down the hallway, but they're all yucking it up and laughing and having a good time, hey, remember when? And they're joking and stuff, and they're not paying attention to what they're doing, and they take one of the chair legs, the width of your hallway down the drywall, and you're like, dude, watch what you're doing, man. It's the paint job. Oh, sorry, buddy. Right? I feel like so often God is looking down on us, His kids, and He's saying, would you watch what you're doing? You're making dents all over the place in the work that I'm trying to accomplish here on earth. You are scratching stuff up. I'm trying to do some crud down here, and you're not helping. And He's addressing what's going on in our lives. So we get so many Christians have Sunday life and then the rest of life. And we come in here and it's like, hey, Holy Spirit, right? And we're having a good time and we're giving God the praise, but then we go out and we just get lazy. We get sloppy. We think it doesn't matter. These are my friends. But listen, the outsiders, the people who are not in the kingdom, they have this pre-programmed part of their life. It's called sin nature. And their sin nature inside of them is looking for whatever excuse they can find to not have to submit to the one true God. It's just in there. They can't help it. And what they do, what their sin inside of them directs them to do, is to look at Christians and to see inauthenticity in them, to see discrepancies in what they say and how they live. They're looking for hypocrisy. And you know why they're looking for hypocrisy? Because they desperately want to disprove that Jesus is real. Their sin nature in them doesn't want to be culpable or responsible. And so if they can look at the Jesus people and see that they're no different, there's nothing that's really changed in them, well, then they don't have to submit to His authority. He's a non-factor, a non-player in their lives. They watch you like hawks. You might be like, really? Yes, they do. Absolutely. Some of you are sitting here because you watched a Christian friend of yours like a hawk. And you were like, I'm just waiting for him to mess up. And he didn't. And then he shared his faith with you, and you're like, all right, I believe it because I see it in your life. And that's why you're sitting in this room right now. You know what I'm talking about. We got to be careful. My son goes to a high school. He's a freshman. He's just getting to know some of his new friends and stuff. And I ask him periodically how's it going. And most days he's got great reports. But one day he came home and he says, yeah, all my friends call me Holy Roller. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, they sit there and they pass around their cell phones with the porn on it and stuff like that, and they do all, and I just say, no, thank you. I don't look at porn on Tuesdays, or something. I always try to give him excuses, whatever. Anyway, but he says, no, I'm not going to do those things. He doesn't look porn ever. Just, I hope. Anyway,